Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Babbling Irons match preview. And this week, lads, we've got the FA Cup back again, fourth round, away to Derby. Looks like the draw is going to be made before our match, just before, which is pretty interesting. So we're going to know who our opposition is, which may play a part in how we perform or how Derby perform. But just overall, how are we feeling going into this one, lads?
We beat an incredibly terrible team last week. It's not exactly giving me much confidence. I know some have tried to polish the turd what that was that performance and talk about how great it was, as well as other players. But to be honest, it was a pretty meek performance in that second half. Yes, Everton didn't pose much of a threat, but we were pretty meek, really. And yeah, going into this game, I fear much of the same. I think there'll be rotation, but it's hard to get excited about West Ham at the moment, and I think that's partially down to I'm bemused by the fact that we still have Moyes in charge, and I'm bemused by our lack of urgency or common sense in the market, bearing in mind the position we're in now, and come the summer, the need in which to bring in a number of players as well. So I'm a bit perplexed at the moment about West Ham and just the direction we're going in.
Sloth, what about you in terms of the FA Cup and the fact that the position we're in the league and also having Conference League? Do you think FA Cup is actually something we could realistically win this year, or should be put in a lot of effort into, or do you think this is a game for rotation and focus on the league?
I think it's a difficult one to really talk about without sounding like you're disrespecting the competition, because I'd love to win the FA Cup. It'd be fantastic, but I want us to survive in the league, and I think that in my personal opinion, what I'd be looking at is rotation. Obviously, I'd be looking to win, but I think if you're telling me that Lanzini and Downs deserve places in the starting 11, they need to go out and prove it. And if you want to play them today, then you need to start these players who aren't getting picked in the league, and they need to perform. The kind of opposite edge of that blade is the well done, he's 13. It's League One, and when you're talking about players trying to force their way into the league side, then is a performance against Derby really gonna counter that? I think unfortunately we have a manager who doesn't, as I've said many times, doesn't seem to pick on form, and if he was, I think we'd have seen a lot more of the young man we're going to talk about in a bit up top. And it's a really worrying kind of sign that, if we win today, it means we've got an extra game, which I'm not that bothered about, but it's the manner in which we win. If we don't rotate the side, it's an extra game, and it's another one down the pipeline that we have to plan for. So I would love us to win, and to be honest, I'm fairly confident we will, but it's just today I think we need to rotate, and I just don't think we will.
Yeah, I mean, there is the obvious candidates like Downs, like Lanzini, that you'd want to maybe see rotate. And yeah, I guess that is nice kind of segue onto one person in particular, which is Mubama, who has been, on fire again for the youth team and scored another couple goals away at Chelsea on Friday night. So there's been a lot of kind of, I don't know, comments about Moyes and the youth team in general, just the fact that they're not getting any chances. Is there a more perfect opportunity for Mubama to start this match against Derby? Because we've got Ings who's injured, we've got Scamacca who's injured. We're injecting both of them for some bizarre reason to try and speed up their process, and then we're left with Antonio. So why do we not just start Mubama in this game, rest Antonio because we don't want to risk him getting injured, and then take it from there? Has he not earned that right to maybe start under Moyes against the League One opposition?
You go by Twitter, no, he hasn't. There's mental gymnastics I constantly see when someone says a player deserves an opportunity. It's like, oh, but you need to earn the opportunity. It's like, how do you earn an opportunity? Now, if you earn an opportunity by playing well at the level you are at, then how has the kid not done that? He's scoring for fun at both under 20, under 18 a lot. The last game was against the under 23s or the under 21 league against Chelsea, who's a very good team. Also, I think that's their first win of the season when it's been for the under 21s, which has been a bad season for them, mainly because of the rotation as well. But again, it's as a striker, his duty is to score goals and to lead the line. Now, he has done that all season at youth level. He's scoring for fun. He played in the game against Bucharest, which again, he led the line quite well, considering it was his first debut. Unlucky not to score with not the header. I'm on about an opportunity that came across the goal. He got a toe on. So, he has done well at the level he's played at. He's done well in the game when he came on. Against Arsenal, he did well in the sense of he does what Moyes loves and what Moyes has been talking about in the press by saying he's a great runner and he has great teamwork and a good attitude. Now, surely prerequisites for any player being in the Moyes team is they have a fantastic attitude, they're a willing runner, and they have exceptional work rate. Now, he has 3 of those attributes, and I also found it quite telling that his comments were based around that and not about his ability to finish, not about the potential he has as a striker. It's concentrated on essentially him as an athlete.
I think that's the Moyes criteria, just being able to fit into his system and adapt and, make those hard grounds.
And isn't that the point? We're saying, has he earned it? Now, he's doing all the things that are prerequisites for being in a Moyes team, and he's still not enough for him. So what can he do more to earn the right if he's not also provided an opportunity in which to earn it? Yes, people will say it's about training, but again, we don't know how well he's training. So any assumption made of him not playing that is because his training is not good enough is a massive assumption and based on no knowledge whatsoever. Go on.
This is one of the key fundamental issues we have as a football club in terms of how we manage the academy, and we're seeing it with Mubama that it's a guy who's scoring goals, and when you watch the goals, it looks like a man in a boys team. He just bullies players and he completely outmuscles them. He looks far too good for that level.
It's all types of goals as well, isn't it, Sloth? It's not just a tap in. He'll go down the channel like he did against Chelsea. He took the ball over his shoulder, ran down kind of the channel to the edge of the 18, cut back in, and then left-footed curled it into the bottom corner. And then I think his first goal was a tap in from like 6-yard area.
He's showing so much of the skill set you need to score goals at this level, and yet we're still playing him at a level which doesn't suit that. He can score 50 goals in the youth team, and that's irrelevant if he's not getting a loan or if he's not getting time in the first team. I'm sick of hearing about, they were given minutes in the Europa Conference League or the Europa League, and you think, that's fine, but they need consistent minutes. And it's when you're that good at that age, you need to be stepping on. You need to be given the challenge so you can rise to it, or you can fail. And the key thing is that we're not giving him that challenge, but also we need to think of this as a business. And look, I hate saying it because it sounds so clinical and cold, but I want West Ham to be profitable. I want West Ham to have a safe future. So we need to be thinking, right, these youngsters who are coming through, we produce them. There is a certain tag that comes with homegrown talent. So we need to be looking at good, proper loans. We need to build relationships with other clubs at a good level where we can say, we've got this youngster, we think he's too good for the youth team. Do you want him on loan? Will he be getting minutes? And
I think the thing with Moyes is like, we want youth to integrate, but like players like Ben Rama have found it difficult enough to even get in the team. And like we've seen his talent, we've seen how much we've wanted him to play, and he would pick someone like Fornals over him at left wing for such a long period just because of, like you mentioned, the work rate, making up the hard ground. And he doesn't necessarily base it just off quality or being able to. And Mubama's only 18 years old. Obviously Moyes doesn't trust him yet. which is fair enough. You know, you have to earn that trust, but at the same time, you can't do that unless you're given opportunities. And there is not a better opportunity than this match. I would never say that.
We were just talking about players getting the opportunity and showing what they're doing. And I'm just going to, like, you know, people might make excuses and say, you know, he failed at Everton. But how many clips on Instagram or whatever did we see of Nikola Vlasic working hard in the gym to try and get a start and, you know, putting in extra hours to get that fitness level, to get that performance and show Moyes that he wanted to work, and nothing as a result. You know, whether or not we think he's good enough is irrelevant, but if a player is showing that, then surely the manager should go, I'll give him 10, 15 minutes, I'll give him 20 minutes. It's about meritocracy, where if you're putting in the hard work, you get the slap on the back and you get the ability to go on. And I just don't think we're getting that. Yeah,
like, I think, you know, obviously we've digressed a little, but, you know, the last kind of point on him is that, you know, one of the comments I had yesterday when I raised about this, you know, it's odd that he's focused on the essentially more the athletic side of him rather than the other attributes that he can bring and the other attributes that you need to be a striker. You know, you often get if he's good enough, if he's old enough, he's good enough. Now we have old enough and good enough players alone in the likes of Lanzini, Fornals, Downs, who don't get a look in. And these are players that are apparently people are screaming to be in the first team. Now, that if you're old enough, you're good enough doesn't necessarily apply, because we've not even seen players that are deemed good enough and are certainly old enough, even getting an opportunity over players who are not fit. So it's not just down to the opportunity or player earning the opportunity. It's often also down to a manager unwilling to change. Now, we have one striker that's fully fit, and we are going to risk playing that player so we don't play a youth kid. Now, this may change, obviously, come Monday. He may actually be playing a brilliant parlour game against all of us, pulling the wool over our eyes, and he starts him. But it's unlikely. And again, it's the kind of thought process that I've often seen used is, well, bring him on when we've won the game, bring him on. Well, what are you learning from that? Yeah, it's a high level of experience, but if all you bring on players in situations where the game is effectively over, people are going to play still as professionals, but they're not going to be at the same level of intensity necessarily, unless it's certain teams. So what do you learn from a player by putting him constantly in the same situation? You need to give them starts where it's maybe difficult or it's going to be a hostile crowd, not just bringing them on when you've silenced the crowd or when you're winning.
Yeah.
You need to test these players in all certain situations. So for me, what perfect time to play the young kid, and also then have the players on the bench to essentially dump your bench on the back onto the pitch if things are not working. For me, that's how we should be looking at it, is that this is an opportunity for you to, going into the last day of the transfer window as well, to potentially catch the eye of someone and earn yourself a loan deal. He's 18. Let's get him out on loan. And also, if we're not going to use him, let's get him in the window that someone, and hope he catches the eye of someone, and we can then go, right, lad, you're going off on loan. Go and do well for the next 6 months, and we'll readdress where we are in the summer. But I think that's where we should leave it on Mubama and get back to the map. But
I was going to say, let's leave that part there. But I think most fans want to see Mubama. But in terms of how we think we're going to line up, and maybe Derby as well, here's our predicted exercise. So we've got Areola in goal, Johnson, Kehrer, Ogbonna, Cresswell as our back four, with Downs, Souček, Lanzini in midfield, and then a front three of Fornals, Bowen, and Antonio. So it's a very much different West Ham team. We're resting a lot of our first team, first starting players, the likes of Agerd, the likes of Rice, Paqueta, Benrahma. This team that we see here, yes, it is second string, but again, no disrespect to Derby, it should be winning the match, and should be winning the match pretty comfortably.
Yeah, it should be winning the game. Comfortably is maybe not, but they've got some good experienced players. But again, when you look at like Sibley, who's mainly been a midfielder until this year, he's moved to kind of left back. Kaysin is young, he's only like 21 centre-back, 21-year-old centre-back. Obviously, Knight and Bird, two young, again, players down the spine of their team. But again, they've paired up with good pros in McGoldrick. Obviously, got Mendes Lang, who's been around for a while. Hurahan, obviously, who used to play at Villa as well, and Norwich and many other clubs, I think you can say, and to put to Hurahan. So they've got some good experienced players in and around them. And, we shouldn't discount Derby because they've been in exceptional form. They've won their last 5 games. I think, in fact, the last 6 games, they've won each of them. So this isn't a team that is, any mugs by any kind of short stretch. They've been very good in their league. It's a good physical league, and they've got some good young players in there as well that, will be looking at this as, again, an opportunity to test themselves against the Premier League club. Probably not in the sense of to put themselves out there, because I think Bird and Knight could have probably gone in the summer and stayed in Championship. But again, it's that testing yourself, and they're going to step up. There's no two ways about it. We can't just look down on that league.
Yeah.
And I would probably argue some of the teams we played in conference is probably around League One to Championship level. So that team has everything within it to win. But we also have to remember we played those teams or played those types of players against those teams, and then we had to deploy our bench. So for me, having a stronger bench than a stronger starting 11 is probably the way to go.
Yeah.
Let those players prove that they can go out and win in a game and show that they can essentially start and influence, as opposed to, having to then bring them on from the bench if your main starters are not doing it. Let's refresh the team, give everyone a bit of a break, re-energize, and give everyone a bit of purpose. And I think if we rotate, that's what it will do. It gives purpose, and we need at the moment a team that's invigorated, is full of purpose, and ready to come onto the pitch and fight. And I think that only happens by bringing in players that have been a bit ostracised, really, I think, from the 11 over the course of this season.
Well, one player in particular is Flynn Downs, that a lot of fans have wanted to see a lot more of, and especially in his natural 6th position. So hopefully we get to see him in that natural 6th position tomorrow, and we get to see what Flynn Downs can do. Yes, against a League One team, but like you mentioned, they're in really good form, and it doesn't really matter regardless of the opposition. He'd still show his qualities in that position to the West Ham fans. So, Sloth, one for you: how much do you want Downs to be a success in this match, and do you think it could maybe give Moyes something to think about going forwards in the league? I know it's obviously what we've mentioned before, that's pretty difficult, but it could do.
Look, I'd love him to start, and as I said, I think rotation is key. So giving him minutes, giving him time to prove himself, I think is vital. Yeah, there's that element of I don't think it's going to happen, but Downs is. I said it when we signed him. I think it's a lot of money for a player who shows quality, but there's such value for money around Europe, and there was such value for money in that window that we just it was one that made me scratch my head, because I don't think he was anywhere near the quality of players like Rice, who he was supposed to be the replacement for, or an addition to. And I just I think he should be looking at this game as a chance to prove himself. But I think it's a signing that was short-term rather than a smart signing.
I think, Alex Scott, you would have had a completely different kind of idea to that deal. You'd be like, well, yeah, he's not going to play much, but he's a player who can play defensive midfield, right wing back, left wing back, attacking midfield, right wing. It's that kind of player that you can mould.
I kind of struggled to get my head round some of the logic behind signings at the club, and I think Downs, we know he can play in the Championship, we know he can thrive in the Championship, so logically you think a League One side he should come in and wipe the floor with. But this lack of rotation, I just think, what if he's rusty? What if he comes on and he has a bit of a howler because he's not got the minutes in him that he should have had? It's difficult for me to get enthusiastic about a potential cameo that might make someone in the summer go, you know what, we'll bid £6 million for him and see if West Ham take it. And instead of actually he's getting a fair run in the team and he's coming on for 30 minutes and there looks like there's a player there because he's been consistently performing.
And in his own position as well, as opposed to what we have before we have brought him on.
you know, it's I'd like to see him play, but do I think it's going to happen? No. Do I think, you know, it's going to consistently happen either? No. So
that's the thing, isn't it? This kind of match, it doesn't really impact much going forwards because Moyes has his set team in the Premier League, and it's very difficult to dislodge that. And it kind of takes a string of really good substitute performances like Benrahma showed, where you're almost forced to do it if you're Moyes, and you can't really continue with the same stuff. But in terms of how we think the game's going to go, before we get into the score predictions, just briefly, do you see us controlling possession? Do you see us kind of sitting a little bit further off? Do you see it maybe a bit, like we mentioned, being a bit more of a tougher game than maybe some of our fans think this could be?
I think it's going to be a tough game. There's no two ways about it. It all comes down to whether we can get an early goal. It's going to be a night game. Night games anywhere are always a bit more up for it.
Yeah.
It's a Premier League club coming down to Pride Park, and it's been, you know, it's something that their fans are going to be really, really up for. The players are going to be up for. What's going to be important is if we do play Lanzini and we do play Downs, is that those two try to take control of possession. I know many people have a problem with Kera, but he is a decent passer out from the back. So again, it gives us another calm head in possession that we can utilise. And then it's about, how do we, in kind of that front line, manage that? Now, if we play three in the middle, then we will outnumber them unless they drop Knight in. Now, they did play against Liverpool with a back three, so they may switch to that position to give themselves a bit more defensive cover. But again, that should still allow us to create overloads centrally to try and control the game. The only problem is one of those overloads is going to be Souček, who we know is a bit loose in possession. But again, we can deploy him further up the pitch to be a bit of a battering ram and to test the young kid whose name's just escaped me, that plays on the left-hand side. Cashin. Forsyth is a seasoned pro. So, again, we could maybe deploy him a bit higher, which to kind of put a bit of pressure on the centre-back. Obviously, Antonio will do what he will do and probably like to go with the more, the elder centre-back, who's maybe a little bit less mobile. And again, Sibley, who's been really a centre midfielder for a majority of his career, has mainly been playing left back or left wing back this year. So again, that's a player that potentially maybe is one that Bowen could. Bowen could look to maybe exploit because he's not necessarily as seasoned as a defender as others. So
sure,
there are avenues in which we could look to exploit. There are avenues in which we can kind of maybe take control of the game, but I think we've got to really be up for it physically because it is going to be physical. They are going to run probably and chase everything down.
Yeah.
And they're going to be a bit of blood and thunder maybe in the tackles, which is why I think is, even if Flynn Downs isn't having a great game in possession, I do think he has got the blood and thunder in him, playing a lot in League One when he was at Ipswich. So I think we can always account on him for that. And Souček also is a solid defensive player when we need him. And hopefully can give a bit of license to Lanzini to maybe pull some strings. But
yeah,
I think we have to silence their crowd. If we can silence their crowd, which potentially would be done through an early goal and trying to essentially suffocate them a bit with possession, then I think that's our best chance. But I think we probably need to get an early goal. And as I say, we definitely need to silence the crowd, so to speak, to maybe suck some of the energy out of Derby. Because if we give them early encouragement by setting off them, the crowd will get up for it. That will give the players an extra bounce. And as we saw last season, when we went away to a team much lower down the leagues than us, the crowd got the team going, the team were up for it. And we really, really struggled until we emptied our bench. So it could be the same situation if we don't take them seriously.
Yeah.
And if we just think that even our B team is good enough to roll over them. Because if we go with that level of arrogance, we could come unstuck.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. It's, the points you mentioned about being at a Monday night. Obviously, they're going to know who they play next in the next round as well, so could be an extra incentive there. So yeah, it's not going to be an easy game, but it is a game I do expect us to win pretty comfortably if we're on it and we don't allow them to kind of get in our faces. And we just, like you mentioned, players like Downs and Lanzini dictating the midfield, keeping control of possession and stopping them from really taking advantage of that home crowd and that home crowd advantage. But let's get our score predictions. Sloth, let's start with you. What are you thinking?
I'm going to go with 3-1 to West Ham. I think we'll concede a goal. It'll probably be a sloppy goal, but
yeah.
I think we should have enough quality to see them off.
Yeah, I think we're going to win 3-0. I think hopefully Areola will be in goal and might make a bit of a difference as well from the defensive point of view. But yeah, I'm pretty confident. I know you mentioned about Derby being on a pretty good run, but at the same time, we're a Premier League team and we should be, winning this pretty comfortably. And as the game gets stretched, I think we'll be able to maybe make a couple of subs as well and just finish the game off. So 3-0 from me. Mike, what are you thinking?
I'm going to go for a 2-1, to be honest. Yeah, at the moment, as we know, we're not massively creative in front of goal or even clinical. So I do think, yes, we could and we should score against Derby. No disrespect to them, because I do think they're going to give us a bit of a good show. And if they don't give us a good show, then I'll be happy and glad to be proven wrong. But again, as I say, their form's been fantastic. They have been scoring in each of their games. Obviously, they've won 6 in a row, but they have been scoring consistently this season and been quite fairly high scoring. So I do think we will probably concede 1 at least. But yeah, we should have enough to win. And if to be a 2-1, I'm going to go for.
Well, we shall see tomorrow night. We'll know who our opposition is before the game, so that'll be interesting. And we'll have our review of the match as well after the match. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. Always difficult to call an FA Cup tie, especially when we're away from home. But yeah, it's going to be a tough place to go. It'll be interesting to see if the likes of Mubama does get a chance or if he'll maybe just be on the bench. And, players like Downs, Lanzini, whether they're going to give an opportunity, or does Moyes go pretty much full strength and plays the likes of Rice and, says we can win this competition and, goes to Derby with full intent of doing so. So, yeah, we're going to see. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at Babbling Irons. Leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel as well. And guys, one thing left to say. Come on, you Irons.
Come on, you Irons.